What would you do if you woke up dead, and somehow that was still the least of your problems? Because the man in this story came back from the dead, walked into ancient China, and had the single most catastrophic, productive, chaotic first 3 days in human history. His name is Yu, and 5 minutes before his funeral, he was a security manager in a major company living a perfectly comfortable modern life. Girlfriend, takeout delivery, a real bed, a working phone, the whole package. Then boom, lights out. He woke up flat on his back with a white cloth over his face and women crying all around him. Not a dream, not a hospital, ancient China. Specifically, a place called Qingha, which the locals had a very colorful nickname for. Widow Village. See, a dynasty called Duchin had been grinding through wars for so long that the male population had basically been erased. Qingha lost every single adult male except one. Him, Yu, the brand new village chief who had just technically died and was now technically alive again. The old doctor jabbed him with needles the moment the white cloth started moving, and Yu's eyes snapped open. What followed was not a peaceful recovery. At least 15 women rushed him at once, hands everywhere, voices overlapping, all of them absolutely certain he was warm and breathing and theirs to inspect. His mother screamed them all back. Party over. Welcome to ancient China. The memories of this body started flooding in fast, and they were not encouraging. Yu was a war veteran turned village chief, living in a mud hut with a straw roof, 1 table, 2 chairs, and a mother with 0 tolerance for nonsense. For little sisters, youngest was 10 years old, but looked like she was 5, a tiny bobblehead of a child, who clearly hadn't eaten a proper meal in longer than anyone wanted to admit. Mom brought dinner, gray paste, random grains, rice husks, weeds ground together into something that tasted like poverty and disappointment. Yu took 1 bite and his taste buds staged a full revolt. Then he looked over and saw his sister staring at his bowl like it was a 5-star banquet. He slid it across the table. They licked the bowl clean. They licked the chopsticks clean. And Yu sat there thinking, God really had deleted his save file and dropped him into survival mode, with 0 tutorials and a family that needed him alive. He briefly considered dying again to respawn back, decided against it, too risky, bad gamble. But the situation outside was even worse than the situation inside. A cluster of men from neighboring villages had gathered around Qingha, like vultures circling something that hadn't finished dying yet. See, if you died, the government would ship all his village widows off to become concubines for other men. These guys had shown up for a preview, shopping before the store opened. One of them actually said out loud, "How come he didn't die? My free wife just flew away." Another one mentioned bandits were coming soon. He'd be dead before long anyway. They'd get their pick eventually. Yu's little sister wanted to fight them right there on the road. He held her back. Can't start beef when you can't afford beef. But something hardened in his chest watching those men talk about his village women, like unclaimed property. Challenge accepted. First order of business, figure out exactly how bad things were. The original Yu had been too sick to inspect the village himself, so Mom had been feeding him fairy tales. Crops are wonderful, everything is fine, pure fiction. So Yu dragged himself outside for a real look around and immediately wished he had stayed in bed. The good news was that laundry was everywhere. Women hanging their clothes out in the open since there were no men to see it. Some of them daughters of former court officials, clearly well-bred, clearly not dressed for company. Yu was the only man within a 10-mile radius, and he was sweating straight through his robe. The bad news was everything else. Up close, everyone looked half-starved, dry hair, hollow cheeks. Children running around with no clothes because clothes were a luxury item this village couldn't afford. The houses were stacked mud and prayers. The farmland was cracked earth and weeds taller than the crops. This wasn't just poverty. This was the kind historians would write footnotes about. Every woman he passed ran over to say hello. The pretty ones grabbed his hand and held on a little too long, testing the new chief's moral fiber. His sister Xing was not impressed. The old Yu never looked at women directly, wouldn't even make eye contact. And here was this new version diving headfirst into chaos. They passed the family field where the 2 youngest sisters were pulling weeds with their bare hands. Yank, fall, wipe tears, get back up, over and over. Yu jumped in to help and nearly blacked out after the pulls. His body was still recovering, still basically a corpse with ambition. But then something strange happened. A warm energy started flowing through him like someone had plugged him into a charger. based on every TV show he'd ever watched. Internal martial arts power. This body had kung fu pre-installed and nobody told him. A name surfaced from the old memories too, Luren, the general who made the original Yule War hero, and also the reason he ended up broke and dying in a mud hut. Complicated legacy. You sent the sisters home and was sitting there wondering how to feed everyone when the universe decided to intervene. A holographic screen materialized in front of his face. Welcome, Golden Knight. Your exclusive shopping system is now active. Consumer level 1. You almost cried. Heaven had sent him a magical Amazon Prime floating in his eyeballs. The store had everything: rice, flour, oil, even a mini tractor, all priced in copper coins, with a buyback feature where he could sell raw materials straight back into the system for cash. He checked his pockets. 7 copper coins. His death money. Mom had tucked them in for him to pay his way in the afterlife. Sorry, afterlife. He had groceries to buy. He went straight for the bulk rice deal. Buy 5 boxes, get 1 free with complimentary meat soup. In his old life, he would have called this peasant food. In this life, it was a Michelin star banquet. And he inhaled an entire box so fast, he probably pulled a jaw muscle. She licked her box clean, looked at him with grease on her chin and said, "Big brother, that was amazing." He patted her head. "Stick with me, kid." Then the girls showed up at the door, the Wong twins, Jia and Shi, 16 years old, identical, carrying wild Hishu roots as a get-well gift from their mother. Sweet gesture. He was about to politely decline when his system went ding. Wild Hishu, 60 copper coins per unit. His brain caught fire. He gave the twins his leftover rice boxes and they ran home happy. Xing was furious. "Big brother, Mom and the sisters are starving and you gave our rice to those little hussies." "Girl, calm down. Those hussies just delivered his startup capital." He sold the roots back to the system and 60 copper coins appeared in his hand. Magic. New plan. Buy cheap raw materials. Flip them through the system. Stack coins. Repeat. Ancient Chinese arbitrage. His scheme was simple, clean, and completely invisible to everyone around him. He was marching toward the nearest town feeling like a genius when a fat man on an ox cart pulled up next to him on the road. Lu, the village chief from the neighboring village, who had apparently heard you died and came to gloat, and was now doubly annoyed to find him alive and walking around. He started hollering to everyone nearby, "Come look at Ching, his pathetic fields. Their pathetic chief, his empty basket, probably a thief. Look at him." Yu's face went dark. He had just come back from the dead. He had internal energy crackling in his chest. He had a magical shopping system. He had eaten real rice for the first time in this body. He was having a good day, and these clowns wanted to poke the tiger while it was napping. Yu picked up a stick from the road. He pointed it at them like a sword. "Your ox carts just trampled my crops, and you want to talk about that? Come on then, less talking, more fighting." Here was what they had not calculated. This body had spent years swinging a combat saber at enemy cavalry for a living. And when you swung that stick, something primal woke up in his muscles, a killing intent so sharp it could cut the air itself. He cracked Lu across the body before the man even blinked. Down he went like a sack of wet rice. "Get him," Lu's men shouted, but nobody moved, because Yu had his stick pressed against Lu's throat, drawing exactly 1 thin bead of blood. 1 inch more, and this would have been a very different story. Lu wet himself, literally a grown man, village chief, soaking his trousers in broad daylight. You offered him 3 options: fight properly and finish it, walk to the courthouse together and explain to the magistrate what those ox carts did to his crops, or run. They chose option 3, scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. Lu scrambled up with his dignity somewhere in the dirt behind him and limped away at full speed. You spat on the ground. Bullies are the same in every century. Be nice to them. They eat you alive. Show teeth. They crumble. He spent his last 3 coins on a cold bottle of Coke from his system. Yes, the system sold Coke, and walked the rest of the way to Masan Town at its temple market, under the blazing sun, sweating through his only robe, feeling like a man with a plan. The plan died on arrival. Drought had driven grain prices into the atmosphere. Regular millet, 30 coins a pound. White rice, 40. Even the garbage brown rice cost 20. With 57 remaining coins, he could buy approximately not enough of anything to matter. He could flip it the other direction, buy cheap rice from his system, and sell it at market price for instant profit. But showing up with 10 pounds of perfect white rice during a famine was not business. That was a please rob me sign. He needed a better angle, and that was when he saw the man with the buckets. Some poor sweaty guy carrying the buckets on a shoulder pole, trying to sell something nobody wanted. A fast silk robe merchant was circling him like a shark, offering 3 coins for the lot. You walked over and looked in the buckets. Crabs. Big, beautiful, green-shelled, white-bellied river crabs. He recognized them instantly. Shanfeng crabs, the kind that sold for absolutely stupid money in his old world. The kind his girlfriend Shaolan used to steam for him on special occasions. He opened his system, purchase price, 40 coins per crab, not per pound, per individual crab. The silk merchant was trying to buy the entire load for 3 coins total. The system would pay 40 per piece. The math was so violent it made his eyes water. 10 coins buys 5 crabs. 5 crabs through the system equals to 100 coins. 10 coins in, 200 coins out. A 2,000% return. This was more profitable than robbing the government treasury and considerably less stabby. He moved toward the crab seller, and that was when everything changed. Because a fat man in silk robes stepped directly in front of him like a human speed bump, with a smile that smelled like trouble. The silk merchant introduced himself as Chindafa, local seafood buyer, biggest on the street, the man who set prices for this entire block. Friend, you come in here paying fair prices and you'll ruin the market for everyone. Go back where you came from. You said the words, none of your business. Chindafa didn't like that, so he sent his attack dog, One Eye, a mountain of muscle, local street enforcer. Allegedly responsible for a merchant's death last year, the body ended up in the canal. Charming fellow. Be smart, kid. One Eye growled, cracking his knuckles. Give our boss some face. Walk away. The poor crab seller was pulling Yu's sleeve, whispering, please just go. You don't know these people. You looked One Eye dead in his one working eye. And what if I don't? One Eye raised his fist. You raised his chin. And then, perfect timing, a squad of soldiers came marching through on patrol. What's all this noise? The silk merchant evaporated so fast, he left a cartoon dust cloud. One Eye became suddenly very interested in his own shoes. Everyone dispersed. One of the soldiers noticed Yu's water canteen, military issue, the kind only high-ranking officers carried. The original Yu had brought it back from his army days. The soldier's entire attitude flipped in under a second. He snapped to attention. Private Ichi, Unit 772, 137th Battalion, reporting to you, sir. He thought you was an undercover military officer on a classified mission. No weapons, no uniform. Shopping for crabs at a street market, clearly deep cover. You played it cool. He handed the soldier his canteen, which still had leftover ice-cold Coke inside, and received a brand new military canteen in exchange. Accidentally getting military street credibility from a half-empty bottle of carbonated brown liquid might have been the greatest trade deal in history. Chindafa slithered back the moment the soldiers left. Guts like yours, he said with that oily smile. The last guy with guts like yours, the grass on his grave is taller than me. Come find me anytime, you said, without even looking up from the crab buckets. The vendors around him were whispering, some impressed, most convinced he was an idiot with a death wish. Meanwhile, the crab seller, a big, gentle man named Wang Laowu, had literally fainted when the soldiers appeared and had to be poked back to consciousness. Dude, there were 3 regular guys with swords. Get up. Laowu blinked at him like a baby deer. Sir, I'm naturally afraid of military people. They look at me and I pass out. This absolute marshmallow of a man. They weighed the crabs. Laowu tried to give him a discount even now, even with the crime boss circling. Then he explained why he needed the money. His father was sick. He just wanted to buy a little meat for porridge. But meat cost 50 or 60 coins a pound during the drought. 40 coins wouldn't get him much. Yu's chest did something inconvenient. Something that felt suspiciously like feelings. Tell you what, he said, give me back the 40 coins. I'll sell you the pounds of pork instead. Market price for 2 pounds of pork was over 100 coins. He was charging 40. Laowu dropped to his knees right there in the dirt. Full bow, forehead to ground, tears streaming. You're a saint. Wang Laowu will never forget this. You pulled him up. Just watch my crabs while I go get the meat. He walked around the corner, opened his system, bought the pounds of pork for cheap, and came back looking like a man who just happened to be in the neighborhood. Behind him, He could already hear the other vendors laughing at Lao Wu. Gullible, they said. He'll never come back. He gave away his crabs for nothing. Joke's on them. You was about to turn those crabs into a fortune. And he just made a friend loyal enough to guard seafood with his life. Every empire starts somewhere. He started with a crying man and a bucket of crabs. He needed a private corner to use his system. You can't have the pounds of pork materialize out of thin air in front of a crowd. So he walked further and further from the market looking for a quiet spot, which of course every watching vendor interpreted as him running scared. Some tough guy, they muttered, couldn't handle it, ran with his tail between his legs. Look how skinny he is. Classic bystander energy. Won't help you, won't fight for you, but absolutely will roast you behind your back. Meanwhile, Lao Wu was guarding those crab buckets like a golden retriever, sweating through his shirt. Everyone telling him the buyer wasn't coming back, and somehow, impossibly, he just straightened his spine and waited. Heart of gold on that one. And here's the part no one expected, because while you was quietly doing commerce in an invisible magic warehouse, something dangerous was unfolding in a blue-tiled house built from stolen temple bricks on the far side of the market. Inside, the market's commissioner Lu was living his best corrupt life. Table covered in food and wine, tattooed thugs on his payroll, a widow on his lap, his hands conducting an unauthorized expedition under her skirt. This was a government official who ran a parking lot-sized market like a crime lord. He had fingers in gambling dens, brothels, and anyone who threatened to report him had a habit of ending up dead on the roadside. Chindafa walked in and tattled. Some village chief humiliated me. He's buying crabs at fair prices. The clerk recognized Yu's description immediately. Oh, that's just the Qingha village chief. Total pushover. Went begging the mayor for disaster relief and got nothing. Almost died of embarrassment. Literally. Chindafa nearly exploded. I was scared of that guy. Commissioner Lu set down his wine, squeezed his lap companion one last time, stood up, grabbed 3 goons with clubs, and wobbled drunkenly toward the market to handle things personally. A hammered government official leading an armed squad to bully a crab farmer. Just a system working perfectly. They found Lao Wu still at his post. Commissioner Lu put on his honey voice. Wang Lao Wu, right? Heard about your sick father. Very touching. But you've been disrupting market order. 5 coins for your stall or leave. Beautiful in its cruelty. The officials had already taken a dozen crabs as an unofficial fee. Now they wanted money too, and if he couldn't pay, well, Chindafa was right there, ready to help by buying everything at rock bottom. Lao Wu dropped to his knees. Please, the other buyer offered 10 coins a pound. Can't you at least match? Chindafa's smile could have frozen lava. Then where is he? If he had money, why'd he run? The price dropped from 3 coins per pound to 2 because the crabs were, in Chindafa's words, looking tired. A tofu-selling Annie couldn't hold it in. This is robbery. It's against the law. Chindafa stopped laughing. Oh, you want to play? Your tofu business is done here too. An older merchant tried to smooth things over. She didn't mean it. Please give face. Chindafa turned on him too. Nobody sells here again. He kicked over half a bucket of crabs for emphasis. Live crabs scattered across the dirt. Nobody moved to stop him. The vendors went silent. Some whispered to their spouses about never coming back. Everyone thought the same thing. I have a family. This isn't my fight. Then Commissioner Lu nodded to his goons. They moved toward Lao Wu's bucket. Not to buy, not to negotiate, to take. Lao Wu wrapped both arms around that bucket like it was his firstborn child. Face white, hands shaking, but holding on. He knew they weren't going to pay him anything. Not 2 coins. Not 1. This was robbery wearing a government hat. And the worst part, he couldn't fight back. Not because he was weak, but because he had old sick parents at home with nobody else to look after them. His grip started to loosen. His eyes went empty. The kind of despair that doesn't announce itself, it just quietly takes the light out. And then, bang, a water bucket flew through the air and slammed into one of the goons. You came back, me dripping from one fist, other hand slamming down on the crab bucket like a judge dropping the gavel. Who told you to touch him? Every single person in that market had written him off. And here he was, strolling back like he owned the place. Lao Wu almost had a heart attack, half from relief, half from terror when he spotted the knife tucked in Yu's belt. Sir, please run. There's too many of them. Chindafa was vibrating with rage. Oh, the little turtle crawled back out of his shell. You tilted his head. Funny you mentioned turtles. When those soldiers walked by earlier, you disappeared so fast I thought you teleported. Who's the turtle again? The entire market gasped. Jaws hit the floor like dominoes. The vendors weren't impressed. They were terrified. You wasn't just poking one bear. He was poking to Chindafa and Commissioner Lu, the drunk government thug who ran this whole market like his personal kingdom. Some vendors tried to leave. The exits were blocked. Lu had positioned a dozen club-wielding goons at every gate. This market was now a cage, and the animals were locked in with you. Commissioner Lu smirked. Village Chief Yi, you think you're walking out of here today? Behind you, Lao Wu picked up his carrying pole like a weapon. His hands were shaking. Sir, when the fight starts, I'll cover you so you can escape. The man who faints when he sees soldiers had just grabbed a stick and offered himself as a human shield. You made a mental note to adopt this person. The tofu lady elbowed her scholar husband. You've studied books your whole life. Now is the time for justice. The scholar turned white as his own product. How should I throw tofu at them? Even if you were a magistrate, someone nearby muttered, these local thugs would still run the show. Accurate, depressing, moving on. Commissioner Lu barked one name, Outstander. This guy was massive, arms thicker than Yu's legs, former street fighter from the capital, saved from execution by Lu himself, known for being absolutely vicious. He cracked his knuckles so loud it sounded like fireworks and looked at you like he was a light snack. Before breakfast, why do you have to go and make trouble, kid? He threw a full power punch at Yu's head, the kind that turned skulls into modern art. Everyone screamed. Lao Wu shrieked, dodge. You turned around and looked at Lao Wu calmly, mid-punch. Relax, I'm doing you a favor today. Building karma. Then his foot flicked a bamboo pole off the ground. It spun through the air, landed in his hands, and he whipped it around so fast it left after images. Military spear technique, learned on actual battlefields against actual cavalry. Not exactly designed for market disputes, but improvise, adapt, overcome. He jabbed Outstander in the stomach before the man's fist even reached him. Blood sprayed. The big fighter's face cycled from I'm going to kill you to I have made a terrible career decision in about half a second. But the idiot didn't quit. Grabbed his club and screamed about beating up retired soldiers and swung again. Buddy, read the room. I just put a hole in you with bamboo. You had your chance. You thrust the pole through his shoulder, yanked it back, and smacked him across the skull. Outstander flew backward and crashed at Lu and Chindafa's feet like a returned package. Delivery complete. Signature not required. He's useless, Lu screamed at his own bleeding fighter. Zero sympathy for the man who'd just been skewered defending his paycheck. Great boss energy. Then Lu shattered completely, pride gone. Face redder than his cheeks could physically manage. He pointed at you and screamed at every goon in the market. All of you, beat him to death. 20-something club-wielding men charged at once. Lao Wu swung his carrying pole trying to help. You kicked him behind his back. Sorry, buddy. But you'd last about 3 seconds in this blender. The original you was already a combat machine, battlefield veteran, trained with sabers, fought nomadic warriors in real war, had used skills from his previous life, half a year of training under a retired mercenary, who taught the company's security team. Combine those two sets of instincts in one body, and 20 thugs with clubs never had a chance. He jumped into the crowd with his bamboo stick and went absolutely feral. Light hits left bruises the size of dinner plates. Hard hits went through people. The bamboo splintered flesh like it was forged steel. Nobody could get within striking distance. It was a blender fighting a bag of grapes. In seconds, literal seconds, over a dozen bodies were on the ground, moaning, bleeding, crying for their mothers. The rest backed away so fast they were tripping over each other's feet. Lao Wu's eyes were the size of rice bowls. He beat all of them with a stick. You walked slowly toward Lu and Chindafa. The market was dead silent except for the groaning on the floor. He smiled, the kind of smile that makes people reassess every decision that led them to this moment. Hey, don't back up now. You'll be turtles. Lu's face cycled through every color available to the human face, red, white, purple, green, like a mood ring having a seizure. Then he raised his hand, and on the roof of the temple behind him, a man appeared, cold eyes, steady hands, loaded crossbow aimed directly at Yu's face. Well, that escalates things. Commissioner Lu started monologuing like a movie villain. Fighting means nothing. It's about status, connections, one crossbow bolt and you're done. One letter to the courthouse and you're executed by Thursday. And honestly, he wasn't completely wrong. The man wasn't dangerous because he was tough. He was dangerous because he wore a government robe. That little piece of fabric was scarier than any fist. You can punch a bully. You cannot punch a bureaucracy. But here was what this fool had not calculated. He just displayed a crossbow in public. In this dynasty, crossbows were military contraband. Civilians owning one was like waving a neon sign that read, "Please arrest me." A retired soldier reporting illegal weapons to the military wasn't a complaint. It was a gift trap promotion for whoever investigated it. And that was when a light bulb hit you hard enough to leave a bruise. The original you had been an idiot, not because he was weak. The man was a walking war crime with a spear. He was an idiot because he forgot who his people were. He'd retired from the army and started begging civilian officials for rice. But he was a military appointee. The emperor specifically put veterans in as village chiefs to keep local corruption in check. His backup wasn't the county magistrate. It was the army. It was like being a cop's kid and calling the school bully's mother instead of your father. Know your resources. You told Lu to let the vendors leave first. Lu thought he was being noble. Really. You just didn't want La Wu catching a stray crossbow bolt. The vendors fled like the market was on fire. Carts flipping, produce flying, people tripping over each other. La Wu refused to leave. Had to be physically dragged out by other vendors. Heels scraping grooves in the dirt. Chindafa snuck away last, pausing to give you one long, calculating stare before disappearing into the crowd. Smart rat knows when to abandon ship. Once everyone was gone, you got to work. He pulled his knife from his belt, lashed it to the bamboo pole, and into seconds flat, he had a 7-foot combat spear. Proper military engineering. He was about 3 seconds from turning Commissioner Lu into a historical footnote when thunder, not actual thunder, hooves. A horse blasted through the market entrance at full speed, so fast that vendors who hadn't quite finished leaving dubbed for their lives. The rider was skilled. The horse literally jumped over a man lying flat on the ground, like a steeplechase, and kept galloping. You squinted at the rider and his brain exploded. Xiaozu. Battlefield memories came flooding back. Real ones. The kind the original you had been suppressing. Fighting alongside brothers in arms, outnumbered, cutting through enemy cavalry. Watching their king personally ride into battle and behead 27 enemy warriors, only for civilian officials to erase every military achievement from the records afterward. Politics, even in ancient China, always politics. Bro, is that you? Xiaozu jumped from his horse and snapped a military salute. 17. That was you, right? 17 was the original Yu's army nickname, and he made a mental note never to ask why. Zhu looked at Lu, looked back at you. His face went through confusion, pity, then pure volcanic rage. Who's bothering you? I transferred to garrison duty, but my commander loves me. I can absolutely make problems for someone. Nah, it's fine. Just a crab dispute. Wazoo was already walking toward Lu with one hand resting on his army saber. Hey, old man, see this blade? Be smart. Leave, now. Lu laughed. Actually laughed. And who are you? A garrison grunt threatening a government official? I could have you killed on the spot. This is Tangha. Civilians run things here. Even your captain wouldn't dare touch me. Xiaozu reached to his belt and pulled out a whistle, blew it so hard his face turned red. Lu cackled. A whistle? You think this is a battlefield? And then the earth started shaking. Boom, 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 hooves, dozens of them. Patrol soldiers came storming in from every direction, fully armed, riding hard. And bouncing on the back of one horse, barely conscious, face a shade of green not found in nature, was the town mayor himself, kidnapped midway through his afternoon and strapped to a saddle. Lu's face went from smug to I have made a catastrophic miscalculation in about 2 seconds flat. The cavalry squad leader jumped off his horse, walked right past Commissioner Lu like the man was invisible furniture, and went straight to Xiaozu. Commander, are you hurt? Commander, not grunt. Commander. Xiaozu had been playing casual this whole time, and he was a full military officer. Then the squad leader turned, saw you standing there holding a spear and smiling, and his eyes went wide. He ran over and dropped to his knees, full bow, forehead to dirt. 17, bro, your little brother pays his respects. Oh, come on, not the nickname again. Get up, man. We're veterans. Stop kneeling. Meanwhile, the town mayor, rattled half out of his soul by an impromptu horseback kidnapping, stumbled over to Commissioner Lu and started slapping him across the face. Smack, smack, smack. Luren, have you lost your mind? Who told you to mess with the village chief? The mayor knew. He knew exactly who you was, or at least knew enough to understand that bothering him was a career-ending decision. And here was his subordinate, who had ordered a crossbow aimed at Yu's face. Lu stood there taking slaps like a human punching bag. Didn't dare breathe loud. Zhu twisted the knife deeper. Is this how you manage your town, Mayor? Crossbow. That's contraband. Was it you? Are you planning a rebellion? The word rebellion landed in the air like a dropped blade. In ancient China, that's not an accusation. It's a death sentence for your entire family tree. Lu crashed to his knees in front of you so fast he probably cracked both kneecaps. Village Chief Yi. I was foolish. I was blind. Hit me. Punish me. Whatever you want. The vendors who had pretended to leave were all hiding behind walls, peeking around corners, watching the most powerful man at this market grovel at the feet of a skinny kid who had shown up with an empty basket 2 hours ago. Their brains were short-circuiting. Does this kid have connections in heaven? Even Chindafa, hiding in the shadows, was having a full existential crisis. He'd been planning Yu's funeral earlier. Now he was mentally planning his own. Yu looked down at the trembling Lu. Fine. Your apology is acceptable. I'll let you live. Lu's face lit up. Don't get happy yet, Yu added. Killing a government official in broad daylight is messy. But accidents happen. Bandits on dark roads. Bodies found in ditches. Very tragic. Very unsolvable. You understand? The light went out. Yes, absolutely. From now on, Village Chief Yi does business at this market tax-free. No stall fees. Best spot in the market. Forever. After they left, Lu stayed on his knees for a very long time, staring at the ground, reconsidering every choice that had brought him to this particular dirt patch. His clerk eventually shut down the market. Lu retreated to the back room and eventually gathered his remaining conscious employees for an emergency meeting. It's over, he told them. Nobody retaliates. Nobody thinks about that kid again. The Emperor is putting military men in charge everywhere. Our days of easy money are done. Chindafa went pale. No more tax evasion, not even a little. The military running government, Lu said quietly. These people are animals. They wiped out entire noble families up north just for disobeying. Welcome to the new reality. And Yu was already on horseback, riding toward the military garrison with Zhu, sitting on a military stallion and thinking about how much had changed in one afternoon. Zhu had gotten him a horse, and funny thing, this body could still ride like a champion. Muscle memory is a beautiful thing. After about an hour, you saw it. A major road under construction, workers everywhere. Military activity buzzing in every direction. Zhu grinned. Figured out who my new boss is? The new garrison commander, like I, nicknamed Lil Fan K, which in ancient Chinese terms meant roughly mini Captain America. A certified battlefield legend who had fought alongside the greatest general of the era, crushed entire kingdoms, and was now assigned to Tangha the Clean House. Lai Kai held the title of Aha Chengdu, military governor of the entire region, with authority over both military and civilian affairs. So no, Xiaozu hadn't been bluffing at the market. He had a nuclear option parked behind him at all times. They rode into the garrison camp. Honestly, it was depressing. The soldiers stationed there were, imagine a football team assembled from toddlers and grandfathers. Some of these warriors looked like they'd lose a fight to a strong breeze. Rusty armor, broken weapons, zero morale. The officers, real combat veterans transferred from the front lines, walked around with the defeated expressions of professional chefs, forced to cook with only ketchup and stale bread. You understood. Years of war had drained the empire dry. Every able-bodied man was either dead, fighting nomads up north, or hiding. All that was left for domestic defense was the human equivalent of leftovers. They found Commander Lai Kai in his tent, wearing a scholar's robe instead of armor. Playing the Gukian, a beautiful woman in red was burning incense beside him. Very tormented genius aesthetic. You sat down and listened. The music was actually gorgeous, but underneath the pretty notes, he could hear it. Frustration, a warrior's rage with nowhere to go. A man who had conquered battlefields, now stuck babysitting a province full of problems he couldn't punch his way through. While Lai Kai played, you grabbed paper and a brush and started writing. Couldn't stop himself. Between his modern knowledge and the original Yu's military experience, ideas were flowing faster than the music. 17. Like I finished and smirked. Since when do you appreciate music? I don't know anything about music, you admitted. But I can hear a man who wants to fight and has no one to fight. Then Like I's daughter appeared, red dress, face like a painting, hair like a waterfall. She drew her father's sword and swung it at you so fast the air whistled. Some kind of greeting. It's ye. You've grown up. You blurted as the memories clicked. Are you saying I was small before? She looked ready to actually stab him. And then it clicked. Years ago in the army camp, there had been a little kid doing their business in the military zone. The original you, discipline officer at the time, had run over and kicked that kid in the rear end. Turns out that kid was the commander's daughter. She had not forgotten. It had been years and she was still furious about the butt kick. Women and elephants, they never forget. Like I sent her away so they could talk business. You handed over his paper, a full strategic plan. How to feed starving troops. How to build real combat capability from a ragtag army of grandpas and babies. How to stabilize the entire region. The lifetimes of knowledge crammed into one document. Like I's face went through about 7 emotions while reading. Surprise, shock, disbelief, then something close to awe. This is the second time you've saved me, he said and tried to bow. A garrison commander bowing to a broke village chief. Sir, are you trying to get me killed? A commander bowing to a village chief. People will think I'm blackmailing you. They came storming back in. Dad, why are you bowing to this butt kicker? You laid it out for her directly. Your father has 3 massive problems. 1. Drought means soldiers can't grow enough food, and if they starve on his watch, the court blames him. 2. His troops are too old and too young to actually fight, so if bandits attack or nobles rebel, he's done. 3. Local noble families have private armies that can steamroll this garrison overnight. My document solves problems 1 and 2. Problem 3. Nobody can fix that without major reinforcements. Like I confirmed everything. The emperor has sent him to Tangha with enormous ambitions and absolutely zero resources. Like being told to build a house with no wood, no nails, and no floor. Then you dropped his bonus strategy. Split your forces, keep the best fighters at the garrison. Send old veterans out to the villages. They can train local militia, protect civilians, and eat village food instead of military rations. You save supplies. Villages get security. Everyone wins. Like I's eyes lit up. Lee snatched the paper to read it herself, then immediately tried to look unimpressed. If you're so smart, why are you just a village chief? Believe what you want. You shrugged, her nose scrunched sideways with anger. He could practically see the mental list she was composing titled Reasons I Hate You, and it was getting very long. He also handed over a second document, a plan for a massive irrigation canal project that could save the entire region from drought. The catch was it required military-level organization if corrupt civilian officials ran it. They'd embezzle the funds, overwork the peasants, and probably spark rebellion. History literally repeats itself. The Yuan dynasty collapsed because of exactly this kind of mismanaged project. Like I agreed it was brilliant, but too politically dangerous for him to execute personally. He'd forward it up the chain. They talked after that, like I sharing what he knew about the bigger picture. The emperor was planning a massive final war against the Turkish nomads, a decisive, all-or-nothing campaign to end the northern threat forever. The scale of it gave you chills, not excitement chills, worry chills. He rode home with a full brain and mixed feelings. In one afternoon, he had gone from crab shopping to national defense strategy. He had reconnected with old military brothers, secured a powerful ally, gotten free market privileges, and accidentally become a political consultant. The original you had spent his retirement feeling sorry for himself and begging civilian officials for scraps while sitting on a network of battle-tested brothers and a rising star commander who could make market bosses wet themselves with a whistle. All he had to do was ask. And you didn't give that consulting for free either. He got paid 40,000 copper coins, a sack so heavy it needed a horse to carry home. Like I called it an investment from the garrison. The deal was simple. Take the money, do business, share profits later. The farming rights to Qinghe's wasteland served as collateral on paper, but the real purpose was a giant protected by the army sign invisibly stamped on his village. Anyone eyeing that land would now have to ask themselves one uncomfortable question. Do I really want to start something with the military? And after you left, Like I's tent became the site of a small revelation. Li was furious. Dad, we're broke. You just gave our food budget to that butt-kicking delinquent. Like I held up the strategy document. This paper alone is worth 100,000 coins. Then he dropped the real bomb. He told her who you actually was, not the village chief, not number 17 who, never mind. The real story, the real meaning of 17 was the soldier who changed battle tactics 17 times in a single night, forcing an entire Turkish army to retreat. The original you had been the personal guard captain, the right hand of Luren, the most legendary general in the dynasty, the man who took 3,000 soldiers against 30,000 Turks and won, the man who once made the enemy Khan abandon his own war banner and flee the field. And you was the brain behind the muscle. Li's jaw nearly hit the floor. She had spent years in the army celebrating Luren's victories, toasting his campaigns, fantasizing about someday marrying someone that legendary. And the man who made half those victories possible had been standing in her tent, getting lectured about gift etiquette. But wait, she said, Luren defected. He fled to the Turks. Shouldn't you be dead? Like I explained, someone powerful had protected him, not just anyone. The Prince of Yan, the Emperor's own son, commander of 50,000 elite troops in the north. A man so impressive that court officials whispered he might surpass even the Emperor someday. And how did the Prince of Yan meet a village chief from Qingha? He had once gone undercover in the army as a cook's assistant, and one day, while using the latrine area, the discipline officer, Yu, had run up and kicked him in the rear end. Same move, same energy, universal butt kicking. The prince didn't execute him. Instead, they became sworn brothers. When Luren's defection triggered a purge of everyone connected to him, the prince quietly arranged for you to be demoted to village chief instead of beheaded. Not just any village chief, chief of a village full of women. It was literally a go somewhere nice and lay low assignment. Except the original you was too proud and too stubborn to enjoy it or ask for help. He just sat in his mud hut, starving, refusing to contact anyone. Classic tough guy syndrome. Li's face went through 4 to 7 emotions in 30 seconds. So this man is backed by the Prince of Yan, kicked royalty in the rear, and is sworn brothers with the future emperor? Like I sipped his tea like the smuggest father alive. That is why 40,000 coins is a bargain. Meanwhile you, blissfully unaware of his own epic backstory, was riding back toward the market feeling like a king. 40,000 coins. He was rich, then reality punched him in the face. He stopped at the horse and cart shop. The owner was napping, woke up, saw the fat money bag, and became Yu's best friend in approximately 1 second. Yu pointed at the fanciest horse and carriage in the shop. How much? Horse, 120,000. Cart, 30,000. Bundle deal, 145,000. His brain made a sound like a broken guitar string. His 40,000 coins, which had felt like a fortune 10 minutes ago, couldn't even buy one horse. Back in his old life, he couldn't afford a car. He had been reincarnated into ancient China, and he still couldn't afford a car. The universe was consistent in its cruelty. He swallowed his pride and bought what he could actually afford. 1 ox, 30,000 coins. 1 cargo cart, 9,000 coins. Spent almost everything. He went from galloping in on a military stallion to sitting on an ox cart going 3 miles per hour. The downgrade was physically painful, but at least he had wheels. His village hadn't even had a donkey before today. He spent his last 1,000 coins on 200 pounds of rice from his system, loaded up the ox cart, and creaked back toward the market. Lu had saved him the best stall, goons guarding it so nobody could touch it. The second Lu saw the ox cart coming, he scurried over like a golden retriever desperate for forgiveness. You shooed him away like a fly. He had rice to sell, crabs to flip, and an empire to build. Being rich was a lot more expensive than he thought. By the time his cart creaked through the market gate, every vendor had heard the story. That crazy kid who beat up 20 thugs made Commissioner Lu kneel and wet himself, then rode off on a military horse. He had gone from random skinny stranger to legendary warrior hero in 2 hours, and suddenly everyone was his biggest fan. Oh, I knew he was special the moment I saw him. When he was fighting, I was cheering from the crowd. We're practically brothers. Sure you were, buddy. He distinctly remembered that particular somebody hiding behind a barrel of turnips. Meanwhile, the people who had actually helped him, Lao was standing there hugging his pork, grinning like an idiot, watching the crabs, not saying a word. Tofu lady calmly selling tofu like she hadn't screamed at a crime boss to his face 3 hours ago. Real ones don't brag. Respect. He opened for business, 200 pounds of rice, round, glistening. Pearly grains that looked like edible gems. System bought quality that made local rice look like gravel. Millet at 25 coins a pound. White rice at 30. Market price was 40 for rice and 30 for millet. He was the cheapest and the best quality vendor in town. People swarmed him, sold out fast. Then he made his real move. When nobody was looking, he touched Lao's crab bucket and sold the high-value crabs into his system. 4-digit profit. Instantly. Then he refilled the bucket with ordinary crabs from his system so it still looked normal. Used the profits to buy another 200 pounds of rice. Loaded it onto the cart behind the cover of the ox. Nobody saw a thing. By the time he stopped, he had over 20,000 copper coins from essentially nothing. In one afternoon, he had become an ancient Chinese arbitrage specialist, with an invisible supply chain and a growing reputation he hadn't planned for. But grain trading couldn't last forever. He needed a proper cover story for income, something sustainable, something that didn't require magically producing perfect rice in public. Walking back through the salt shop gave him the next idea and immediately showed him why it was impossible. Salt was a state monopoly in this dynasty. The government's own product was coarse, gritty, bitter, mixed with sand, and still cost 125 coins per bushel. His system sold fine refined salt for 6 coins per pound. The markup potential was mind-bending, over 20 times. But selling salt privately was treason. They'd stamp rebel on his forehead and remove the forehead shortly after. That plan went into the brilliant but suicidal folder. On his way out, he bumped into young soldier Yichi from the morning patrol. His coke canteen had been confiscated by the commander, somewhere in a garrison tent. A grown man in full armor was probably trying to figure out how to get more of that magical brown bubbly elixir. You gave Yichi the pounds of pork as thanks. The soldier tried to refuse. You threatened to say bad things to his commander. The pork was accepted immediately. Yichi whistled. 20 soldiers appeared from nowhere. Boys, see this man. He's our VIP. Anyone messes with his business here, you know what to do. For the price of 2 pounds of pork, you now had a private security detail. Best return on investment of any century. Then Yichi pointed him toward the weapons rack at their camp. Confiscated bandit gear, most of it being melted down into farming tools, but they kept a few high-value pieces. You picked up an old ring-pommel saber. The scabbard was rotting and crusted with old blood, but the blade, master-forged, 100 layers of steel minimum, perfect edge, not a single chip. That one, he said. Ichi looked nervous. Sir, are you sure? That thing is weird. We found it buried in pond mud. It won't sharpen, and it weighs 11 pounds. Normal swords weigh 3 or 4 pounds. Nobody can even swing this. You picked it up with one hand and spun it around his head several times like a helicopter blade. Every soldier's jaw dropped simultaneously. He left 5 more pounds of pork and walked out carrying his 11-pound mystery sword. A squad of loyal soldiers and the reputation of something slightly beyond human. Final shopping list for the ride home. 10 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of pork, a crate of eggs, baby cabbages, fine salt, Sichuan peppercorns, star anise, and green onions. He was going to cook his family a meal that would make their ancestors weep with joy. Total remaining cash, 20,000 coins. As long as he didn't try to buy another horse. He was basically a millionaire. But back on the road to the village, his sister Shioi was having a very different kind of afternoon. She was walking home with a group of village women at 1,500 coins from pawning their mother's hairpin, and behind them, an ox cart from Shao village had been following the whole way. Same jerks from that morning, offering rides for 2 coins each. Soft grass mats, just for you. Some younger women almost took the offer until an older woman hissed, "Are you crazy? They'll drag you into the mountains and sell you to wild men." Shioi backed her up. These men harass the village women constantly. Don't get anywhere near that cart. The driver's face went dark. He'd been eyeing the prettier girls like items on a menu. And people wonder why this place is called Widow Village. Then the cart stopped. A man jumped off holding an axe. His name was Shao the Rascal, the neighboring village's resident thug for hire. Too violent to kick out because they needed him for fights. A professional bully who survived by finding people weaker than himself. He stomped through the group of frozen women until his eyes locked on Shioi, specifically, onto the coins bulging under her clothing. He claimed Sun Widow, one of the village women, owed him money from years ago, with interest. The debt was now 1,000 coins, a forged IOU, fake thumbprint, the whole setup. This was never about the debt. This was a kidnapping dressed up as collection. The village women circled around Sun Widow, but Sun Widow walked out herself, furious through her tears. I never borrowed anything from you. You're lying. And then Shioi did something incredibly brave and incredibly dangerous. She stepped forward, shaking, voice cracking. Shall the rascal get lost? My brother is coming and he'll beat you up. She was waving Yu's name around like a borrowed sword. She didn't even know if the rumors about this morning were true. The rascal smiled that predatory smile. Oh, little Shioi wants to play hero. How about you take out those coins from the pawn shop today and pay Sun Widow's debt? Her blood went cold. He'd been watching her all day, the fake debt, the axe, following them for miles. All of it was targeting the 1,500 coins inside her shirt. And where was you? Half a mile behind them on an ox cart going 3 miles per hour, smoking a cigarette and daydreaming. The rascal waved his forged IOU around like a trophy. He gathered a crowd of road travelers to watch, black ink on white paper, thumbprint right here, clear as day. He was using Yu's own reputation against his sister, weaponizing honor. This cockroach had done his homework. Shioi was cornered. She was the seconds from handing over every coin in her shirt. And then, Yu, the sound an ox makes when you pull the reins. Everyone turned around. There was Yu, lying on his ox cart like a couch, straw hat on, cigarette trailing smoke, sunset burning behind him, wind moving his clothes like a movie poster, just vibing. He sat up slowly, took off the hat, looked at every single person in that crowd. Sun Widow, who had been having a full panic attack, went completely still. Then her eyes filled, not with tears of fear anymore, something else entirely. She was looking at him like he was a sunset over the ocean. While Nanny's jaw hit the ground, she immediately looked at every other woman present with pure competitive fury. Yu hopped off the cart and walked up to Shioi. Hey, big sister, you okay? She stared at him like she was seeing someone completely different. The old Yu never spoke gently to anyone, and here was this version, eyes soft, asking if she was all right. The crowd started buzzing. Isn't that the guy who beat up Commissioner Liu at the market today? That sick guy did all that. Shao the rascal saw him, and his body wanted to run, but his pride wouldn't let his legs move. His buddy hissed from the cart. If you chicken out now, you're done in the village. Plus you spent 100 coins on that fake IOU. The loan sharks will come for you if you can't pay. Trapped between fear of you and fear of the loan sharks. Beautiful. He puffed up his chest, gripped his axe, and stomped forward pretending he wasn't terrified. Shioi filled you in fast. Fake debt, real axe, targeting Sun Widow to squeeze money from the family. You looked at this clown, still holding an axe, still breathing. Both of those were privileges he was about to lose. So you're saying Sister Sun owes you money? The rascal's eyes lit up. He opened his mouth. Sure, you said, I'll pay. But first you owe me 20,000 coins for terrorizing my sister. The rascal's face went blank. Let me paint the picture, you continued. Broad daylight. Public road. Dozens of witnesses. A grown man with an axe cornering a group of unarmed women demanding money. In what universe is that not robbery? The crowd started laughing. Not nervous laughter. Genuine, belly deep, pointing at you laughter. The rascal's face went red. He raised the axe and pointed it at you. You want to play games with me? He started swinging the axe like a helicopter blade, screaming about not caring about rules. Pay up for Sun Widow or he'd take her. Really inspiring, you thought. Made him feel things, specifically. It made him want to hit the man in a very particular location, which is exactly what he did. He didn't even draw his sword. Just lunged forward and jabbed the rascal right in the groin with his scabbard. The sound that came out of this man was the most natural thing in any dynasty. Before he could process that his future had just been significantly limited, you kicked him in the face. The rascal flew backward to meters and hit the ground like a bag of broken decisions. Axe clattering away. You hit me. He screamed from the dirt. Yeah, buddy. Generally what happens when you wave an axe at my sister. The rascal saw you trembling. This body's bloodlust had been cranking up since he'd picked up that 11-pound sword, and it was taking more energy to hold back than it would have taken to just finish it. The rascal read the trembling as weakness. He thought, one lucky shot. He charged again. You hit him in the same spot, Pinpoint accuracy, same location, twice. The rascal collapsed like a puppet with all its strings cut. You looked at the village women, ladies, throw things. A hailstorm of dirt, rocks, and miscellaneous debris rained down on Xiao the rascal. He curled into a ball, covering his head, squealing. Then Wang Annie decided her hands were insufficient. She took a running start, launched herself into the air, and landed butt first on his stomach. He vomited everything, colors you didn't know could come out of a human body. A complete gastrointestinal rainbow. Shioi dragged Wang Annie off before she set this man to death. Involuntary manslaughter via butt cheek was not on today's agenda. Then quiet, gentle, wouldn't hurt a fly. Shioi punted the rascal between the legs for a third time. Hat trick. 3 shots in one fight. A new dynasty record. He rolled away screaming and retreated on his ox cart at maximum cow speed, hollering about burning the village down. Sure you will, buddy. Right after a certain part of your anatomy comes back from whatever dimension it had been sent to. The aftermath was somehow worse than the fight. Village women swarmed you from every direction, hands on his arms, his face, his shoulders. He closed his eyes and pretended to meditate. Shioi eventually removed them like a quality control officer clearing a production line. Then Sun Widow dropped the nuclear bomb. Village chief, you should just marry all of us. She was completely serious, standing there with tears still drying on her face. Pitching it like a business plan. Can't repay you with money, so repay you with us. Older women offer their daughters. Everyone has your children. In 15 years, every man in the village is your son. You'd be untouchable. Wang Yanni fired back instantly. Who says you take care of him? We take care of him. You just sit there. We cook. We clean. We farm. You just exist and make babies. You just need to eat. We handle everything. The men from neighboring villages watching the scene were dying, not from sympathy, from pure, undiluted jealousy. Everyone, calm down, you said. I can't marry all of you. I'm one person. He told them to go home, stay inside. Too many creeps had been targeting village women lately, and the rascal might try revenge. Wang Annie raised her hand like a student. If we can't go outside and there's nothing to do, Chief, you should really just help us make babies. Before he could respond, Shioi saved him. It's getting dark. Did anyone feed their chickens? Did your kids eat dinner? Strangers were poking around the village today. If they stole your laundry, you'll be walking around naked tomorrow. That got them moving. They all stampeded onto his ox cart uninvited. You drove home with an entire village of women piled on his rice bags. His face a mask of pure suffering. When the cart finally creaked up to his house, his mother was waiting at the door, and she was not prepared for what happened next. The separate ox carts pulled up behind you. Sitting in them, fat and sweating, was Mayor Neu, the same mayor who had refused Qingha a single grain of relief rice. The same man who had humiliated the original Yu so badly it nearly killed him. This man was now outside Yu's house personally delivering the full carts of quality rice, slapping his own thigh and announcing what a remarkable village chief they had. Mom grabbed a burning stick, Xin grabbed a hoe, the little sisters grabbed bricks. They formed a battle line at the front door. The mayor nearly fell off his cart. Then his men dragged out a bound man with cloth stuffed in his mouth, the Shao village chief, the one you had beaten with a stick that morning. The mayor's men beat him right there in the courtyard as a live demonstration. Mom stood holding her burning stick, mouth open, brain running emergency diagnostics. The mayor said some flowery nonsense about how hard he had fought to get this grain approved, then fled. His cart couldn't move fast enough. After this morning, after soldiers had kidnapped him from his chair on Yu's behalf, Mayor Neu had done the math. Groveling was cheaper than dying. Mom couldn't process any of it. The man who hated them had brought free food, beaten their enemy, and run away scared. Xing hopped onto the grain bags, slashed them open with her hatchet, announced, Mom, it's real grain. Good stuff. Not mixed with dirt or grass seeds. Mom stared at the carts of rice, then at the empty road, then back at the rice. Has that old pig finally grown a heart? No, Mom. He just met your son's new friends. You pulled up to the house expecting a hero's welcome and walked into a crime scene instead. His 2 youngest sisters were kneeling in the courtyard like prisoners of war, white-faced, trembling, not daring to breathe. Turns out they had done what any starving child would do. When the carts of beautiful rice appeared in the yard, they grabbed handfuls and ate. Mom had gone nuclear. She had kicked for so hard the 10-year-old flew 3 meters across the courtyard. 3 had frozen mid-chew, too terrified to swallow. The family rule: starve to death before touching someone else's rice. That grain was relief supplies for the whole village. The village chief's family doesn't steal from the pile. 3 and 4 screamed together, "We're sorry, Mom. Please don't throw us away." Throw them away? That wasn't a figure of speech in this era, when families couldn't feed everyone. They sold their children or traded them to neighbors. These kids thought eating unauthorized rice was a deportable offense. You walked in, saw them kneeling, and picked them both up. They clung to him screaming, "Big brother, are you selling us? Please don't throw us away." "Why would I sell you? I just got here." Mom stormed inside radiating pure maternal fury. Not even a welcome home, just heat. Shin came sprinting out to inspect the ox cart and nearly lost her mind. New cart, a cow, a horse. She was bouncing like it was a holiday. You pulled out a handful of dried fruit from his pocket. "Split these among yourselves." 3 and 4 stopped crying mid-sob. Mom came storming back out, leg already cocked. 3 and 4 hit the ground flat, face down, zero movement. Military-grade reflexes from years of dodging. The fruit was confiscated before anyone could chew. Then Shin told him the other problem. While he and Shioi were out, the government marriage bureau had come. Shioi was 17, and if she didn't get married soon, the government would either assign her a random husband or charge the family extra taxes. So on top of drought, famine, bandits, corrupt officials, marketplace crime lords, and neighboring villages hunting their women, now the government wanted to drag his sister to the altar. Problems come, we solve them, go feed the animals. He walked into his mother's room for what he mentally ranked as the most dangerous conversation of the day. Not the 20 thugs at the market, not the crossbow on the roof. His mother. She was performing surgery on his bag of dried fruit, wrapping it in oiled paper, hanging it from the ceiling beam like she was storing classified documents. She handed him exactly to pieces. "Famine's on. Girls don't need treats. You eat these." He reached up and untied the bag. Her hand rose to slap him, hovered, came back down. She can't hit the golden boy, but she grabbed the bag and held on for her life. 1 or 2 pieces is enough. If they eat too much, it'll wake up their appetite and they'll be hungrier. This woman's logic: don't feed hungry children because feeding them makes them realize they're hungry. Bulletproof reasoning if you ignored everything about how humans work. Then she gave him the speech, the one she'd been saving. "You are the only man in this family, the only man in this village. Every storm, every threat, every problem, your shoulders. If we each skip 1 meal, that's 5 extra meals for you. You eat. You get strong. You earn money. Your sisters marry well. That's how we survive." She wasn't done. "I know you were giving up. I saw it. You were going to die and leave us here. But you're the eldest son. Your father's words. Eldest brother is father. Those girls aren't married yet. You don't get to die." And then his mother, this iron woman who kicks children across courtyards and rations fruit like gold bars, started crying silently, facing the wall, shoulders shaking, trying not to let anyone hear. His insides twisted. She wasn't wrong. The original you had given up. The weight of supporting a village of women with 0 resources. Getting humiliated by every official he begged. Watching sisters starve. It broke him. He didn't die of illness. He died of despair. And here was Mom holding everything together with nothing but willpower and violence. Starving herself so he could eat. Beating her daughters so they'd learn discipline. Crying alone so nobody would see weakness. "Mom, stop crying. Let me talk." He reached into his sleeve and pulled out 1 egg. Her eyes locked on it like a heat-seeking system. Then another, and another. 8 large, beautiful, perfectly round eggs, system quality. Bigger and shinier than anything this world had ever produced. Her first instinct was to grab a basket from the ceiling and store them. "Mom, they're boiled. They'll rot." He peeled the eggs and literally put them in her mouth. She chewed reluctantly, watching him like he'd committed a crime against fiscal responsibility. Behind the door, 3 little heads were stacked vertically like a totem pole, Shin on top, 3 in the middle, 4 at the bottom, all watching Mom eat eggs, all drooling in silence. "Is that an egg?" 3 whispered, 4 licked her own fingers for comfort. Shin hissed, "Shut up. Big brother is negotiating on our behalf." He walked out with Mom almost smiling for the first time all day and handed each sister 1 egg. They froze. The original you never gave them food directly. Everything went through Mom first. Receiving an egg from their brother's hand was so alien they couldn't process it. They didn't even peel them, just crammed whole eggs, shell and all, into their mouths like chipmunks storing winter supplies. He slapped each one on the back. Peel it first, you animals. Then he said the words that rewired every circuit in that household. Shing, make dinner. 2 bowls of rice porridge per person. Half a pound of meat in the pot. Absolute silence. Nuclear-grade silence. This family ate 1 meal a day, 1 bowl of wheat and husk paste. And he was ordering meat porridge at night, with white rice. Shing's brain needed a full reboot. Big brother, we're eating dinner. Like a second meal today? Yes. Move it. She grabbed the meat and sprinted to the kitchen before he could change his mind. 15 pounds of pork in one hand, full speed, priorities fully intact. Shioi nearly had a stroke when she came in from feeding the animals. We can't be this extravagant. It's not even a holiday. Shing was already chopping meat at supernatural speed. Big brother said it. I'm doing it. You want to argue? Argue with him. 3 infra were at the stove stoking the fire with a passion. They had never previously shown for anything for blow harder. 3, more wood. These kids, who had been kneeling in punishment 20 minutes ago, were now operating that kitchen like a racing pit crew. Then Shing opened the rice bag. Her face went completely white. The system rice, round, glistening, polished-looking grains that nobody in this province had ever seen. She looked at you with an expression that asked, Big brother, did you rob the Dragon King's palace? No. Little sister, just shop somewhere you can't see. Mom stood in front of the ox cart, staring at the supplies like he'd backed up a getaway vehicle. Son, did you rob the government treasury? Shioi jumped to his defense. No, Mom. Big brother was doing business at the temple market, making real money. Everyone was talking about it on the road. I sold seafood to rich people, crabs, river stuff. City nobles pay insane money for fresh catch during a drought. Mom noticed the spices, the fine salt, the seasonings. Her finger went straight into his forehead like a woodpecker. Wasteful boy. What are these luxury items? Time for tactical maneuvering. He put on his most innocent face. Mom, you know me. I squeeze every coin. But Shing begged me before I left. Big brother, if you make money, buy this and that. She took such good care of me when I was sick. How could I refuse? From the kitchen, Shing's head popped up like a startled prairie dog. Her mouth formed a perfect shape of absolute betrayal. Mom grabbed his sword from his belt and charged toward Shing like a samurai housewife. You held her back. Mom, just use a stick. She's still young. He winked furiously at Shing. Shing had already launched herself onto the roof. Then she paused, thought about the white rice, the eggs, the fruit, the fact that Big brother had chosen her first for everything today. She jumped back down. Mother, it was all my fault. I corrupted Big brother. Punish me. She volunteered for a beating to protect his cover story, loyalty without equal. Once things settled, you carried an entire bucket of copper coins into the bedroom and set it on the table in front of Mom and Shioi. He plunged his hand in, clink, 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 the most beautiful sound in any century. Both women stopped breathing. Mom's hand went in, then Shioi's. Both of them standing there running coins through their fingers, faces frozen in shock. Old army brothers owed me favors. They sent money as thanks. Big brother, Shioi whispered, your army friends are this generous? This is landlord money. This is pocket change. There's more where this came from. Then he laid out his business plan. No more free handouts to villagers. From now on, anyone who needs money comes to work for them. 50 coins a day. Real work, real pay. Mom's response to his employment reform initiative was to remove her shoe and apply it rapidly to his skull. 15 strikes before she ran out of steam. He didn't dodge a single one. Dodging makes mothers angrier. This is universal across all timelines. But she eventually agreed. Paying people to work beats giving handouts. Even her wolfpack survival logic could accept that. Outside, the 3 little sisters were having the time of their lives around the fire, giggling, high on eggs and the promise of meat porridge, debating the optimal strategy for asking Big brother for new pants without getting beaten. For concluded the best approach was to ask on someone else's behalf, take the beating herself, and claim both sets of old clothes as hand-me-downs in the chaos. 1 beating, to new outfits. Very efficient. You overheard this, and his throat did something inconvenient again. This tiny girl, looking 5 years old in a 10-year-old's body, malnourished, wearing rags, had calculated the optimal beating-to-clothing ratio like a tiny adorable economist. He told them both to close their eyes, magic trick, and the beautiful kid-sized handful outfits materialized in his hands from the system. Their faces, oh, those faces, like every good thing compressed into one single moment. Finally, the family sat down to eat rice porridge with pork shreds, boiled eggs, pickled vegetables. Nothing fancy. His modern brain kept thinking it needed red dates and rock sugar, hospital food by his old standards. But his family ate like they had been invited to heaven's banquet. 3 of them blew carefully on their spoons, took one tiny sip, then closed their eyes, not gulping, savoring. Each spoonful held in the mouth like it might be the last good thing they ever tasted. Eyes closed, gone somewhere. Some quiet place where sisters have new clothes and brothers buy eggs and mothers don't kick you. Across the yard, for the first time, there was enough. Nobody counted their spoonfuls. Nobody watched someone else eat and calculated if there would be any left. Then she always started crying into her porridge, just tears falling quietly into the bowl. 3 of her saw big sister crying and immediately started crying too. Emotional dominoes. Big sis, big brother is alive, Xing said. Why are you crying again? She always sobbed. I haven't felt my stomach this full in so long. I'm just so happy. She was crying because she had enough food. That was what this world had come to. Then 3 sniffled. Before Dad died, his last wish was to eat a bowl of porridge with meat in it. He never got it. The room went quiet. Their father had died with one final dream, a bowl of meat porridge. And here they were, eating exactly that. Dad's watching from up there. You said, be happy so he can be happy too. They nodded through their tears and cried harder because of course they did. He excused himself before it became a 5-person sob festival, checked on Mom, who was sewing quietly in her room, content, slipped outside. The rest of that evening brought new complications. A hidden Wong twin discovered behind the woodpile. 15 widows appearing from nowhere to enforce a pact they had apparently made about nobody, making moves on the chief while he was recovering, and a 4-year-old boy who delivered a devastating comparative anatomy lecture before sprinting into the darkness. But the night ended with a girl named Wangji standing in the moonlight, telling him something that stopped his breath. The day he had gone to the market, the day everything went sideways with Commissioner Liu, she had secretly followed him the whole way. When she saw him surrounded by thugs with nobody coming to help, she was the one who ran to find Xiaozu. She brought the cavalry, literally. She had been protecting him before he even knew she existed. When I watched you fight all those men by yourself, she whispered, I knew you were the only man I'd ever marry. That night, the frogs and insects outside were very loud, and a small storage shed in the backyard had a cot that turned out to be quite useful. Data began at 6 in the morning with what sounded like a domestic explosion. Mom chasing Xing around the kitchen with a burning fireplace poker over a white cat. Xing had been secretly feeding with family grain. She did parkour across the kitchen, ground a countertop to ceiling beam, refusing to release the cat. Her clothes were literally smoking. She would not let go. You briefly considered going back to bed, then he built a shotgun instead, using system materials, steel pipe, and electric arc igniter, cheap steel pellets. He spent the morning constructing something that would have made history professors weep. Testing in the backyard, he loaded up, aimed at a bucket of sand, and pulled the trigger. The bucket exploded into Swiss cheese, dozens of tiny holes, sand pouring out like an hourglass. By noon, he had a functional weapon that could turn any bandit into a very surprised colander from a respectable distance. He also went bounty hunting that afternoon, using skills from both lifetimes to track a wanted fugitive into the mountains, locate him sleeping in a tree, and handle business with the efficiency of a man who had been doing this sort of work across 2 separate lifetimes. He built a cover story around it, linking up with his old friend Sukin, a brilliant scholar running a neighboring village of professional beggars who had turned their intelligence network into the finest spy operation in 3 counties. Beggars make the best spies. Nobody watches what they see. They are everywhere and nowhere. By the end of day 2, you had caught bounties, paid Sukin's village in flour and pork, established a bounty clearing channel through his military contacts, and created a supply chain that would keep coin flowing without anyone asking too many questions. But something nagged at him on the ride home. In the mountains that afternoon, he had noticed a man whose beard didn't match his hair color, arms too thick, footsteps too controlled. This wasn't a common criminal. He let the man slip through while busy. Mistake. The one you ignore is the one who puts a knife in your back later. Mental note filed. And then came the moment that shifted everything. Lao Wu, his loyal, gentle, fainting at the sight of soldiers. Lao Wu had not delivered crabs for 2 days straight. He always checked in, always, without fail. One mistake could mean anything. To miss days meant trouble. Someone told him Lao Wu had gone bounty hunting with a group from his village. Social pressure. His father's medical bills. The same gold rush energy you had warned everyone about. That marshmallow was out in the mountains somewhere, holding a farming tool, facing professional killers, with his wife at home, wondering if her husband was coming back alive. You can't save people from their own courage, even when their courage is going to get them killed. You strapped on everything, straw hat, warrior outfit, shotgun on his back, ring pommel sword on the saddle, climbed on the military horse, rode hard for Sukin's village. The hostility on the road was palpable. Villagers from neighboring areas watched him pass, whispering, not the admiring kind, the jealous kind. Look at him rushing to hog all the bounties. He told us not to hunt and goes out himself. Our village has real men, dozens of them. Why should one man from Widow Village take everything? He had literally taught them how to find criminals, warned them about the dangers, given free advice. And now they saw him as the enemy because he was better at the job than they were. That's human nature, isn't it? You help someone and the first thing they calculate is whether you help them enough, whether you're keeping the good parts for yourself. He got the intel from Sukin and rode for Exxon Mountain, pushing hard through the dark. When he arrived, he found Lao Wu's wife first. She and a group of other women, elderly people, and children were hiding in the brush at the mountain's edge. What are you doing here? We were worried, she said. If something goes wrong, we can absorb some sword strikes so the men can escape. They had brought themselves as volunteer human shields, willing to take stab wounds so their husbands could run away. This is what poverty does to people. Go home. He told them, I'll handle Lao Wu. If your village chief's son gives you trouble, come to me. I'd have land, food, and room. He pushed into the forest, found Lao Wu, who immediately went dark with shame when he saw him. That stupid woman, I told her not to bring you. You kicked him. Not hard, okay? A little hard. You idiot. You don't tell me you're walking into a suicide mission. Look at those birds. Something dangerous is in there. And your people are walking toward it with garden tools. Then a group of men stormed over, led by a scrawny teenager holding a hoe like it was a legendary weapon, Wang Manji, the village chief's son, hitting right in Yu's face. Who are you to interfere? Wang Lao Wu is our strongest fighter. You can't take him. He's under contract with me. Sign paperwork. He's supposed to be collecting crabs, not playing soldier. I'm taking him back to do his job. Got a problem? Take it to the magistrate. But no one saw what was coming next, because high in the canopy above them, the birds that should have been landing were still circling, still refusing to touch the trees. Not because of the clumsy villagers making noise below. Something else was in that mountain. Something that had been watching all of them for a while now. The argument between you and the village chief's son was still going when the forest changed. A sound that wasn't wind, movement that wasn't animal, the kind of stillness that arrives just before a trap closes. Yu's hand found his shotgun before his mind had finished forming the thought. The disguised man from yesterday, the one with the beard that didn't match, the arms too thick for a farmer, the footsteps too controlled for a wanderer, had been here all along, not hiding from bounty hunters, setting a trap for them. And now a mountain full of amateurs with farming tools and one village of frightened women, used as human shields, were all standing inside it. That was the moment you understood how wrong this had gone and how much worse it was about to get. Before it got better, he stepped in front of Lao Wu without thinking, raised the shotgun, controlled his breathing the way the original Yu had learned to do before a cavalry charge, the lifetimes of muscle memory taking over at once. What followed in those mountains was fast, brutal, and precise. The dangerous man came out of the tree line, moving like someone trained for war. Not performance, no wasted motion, no warning shout, just commitment. You fired. The mountain model one spoke twice in the dark, and the threat went down before it reached anyone. The village men, who had been so eager for this, stood very still in the aftermath. No more talk about easy money, no more comparing themselves to you. Just the ringing in their ears and the understanding, sudden and absolute. of the difference between reading a wanted poster and actually finding the man on it. Lao's hands were shaking so hard he couldn't hold his machete. You took it from him gently. Go home. Take your wife home. Tell your clan elder next time he wants to send people into the mountains, he should come himself first. The walk back out of the forest was quiet in a way fights never are while they're happening. Sukin was waiting at the edge of the tree line when you came out. Figured you'd need an exit that didn't involve explaining a shotgun to 30 witnesses. You handed him the intelligence sheet and the bounty proof. Sukin looked at it, looked at him, and said nothing for a while. Then, you were right. I sold the intelligence to publicly. Word will spread. My beggars aren't spies anymore. They're targets. Already thinking about it, you said, retrain them as storytellers, performers. Tea house entertainment. They know every scandal in 3 counties. That's more valuable than spy work anyway, and a lot safer. Sukin looked at him the way scholars look at a problem they didn't solve first. He tried to look unbothered, mostly failed. Get some sleep, he said, and if you're serious about employing people from my village, my boys need wives more than they need wages. Think about it. You rode home through the dark, coins in the saddlebag, stars coming out, the weight of the day settling into his bones like sediment. When he got close to the village, a small figure was perched on the wall like a gargoyle. Shing. She'd been waiting up there the whole time. The second she confirmed it was him, she launched off the wall and sprinted toward him at full speed, hundreds of meters in seconds, long legs eating the distance. Big brother, you're back. He swung her up onto the horse behind him. She grabbed his waist and for a moment was just a kid, squealing about what riding a horse felt like. Mom appeared from the shadows instantly, grabbed Shing's thigh, and pinched until the girl nearly screamed. A proper girl climbing walls and riding horses. Have you no shame? While Mom administered Shing's lesson in gender norms via physical persuasion, Shioi and the little sisters were already at the saddlebags. More rice, more flour, more meat, more oil. Big brother had delivered again. Then Littlefer came running from the house on her tiny legs, carrying a bowl of water. Big brother, drink this. She saw him come home, and her first thought was that he must be thirsty. Not what did he bring? Not as their food, just he might be thirsty. His heart every single time. Over dinner that evening, whole chicken soup. Old Hen's mom had immediately diagnosed as too old to lay eggs and dispatched into the pot. In under 3 minutes, a new tension surfaced. Shing was quiet. No bickering, no stealing, no sass, just eating silently. What are you looking at? She said when she caught him watching. I'm not as pretty as your Wong girl. Am I? She'd gone to meet him when he came back from Jia's house and he walked right past her, with his arm around someone else. Didn't even see her. Before he could apologize, she turned to Mom. He forgot about you two. He used to say hello to you first thing. Today he just sat in the yard grinning like an idiot. Mom slapped the table. I'm happy he's grinning. He could bury me alive and I'd die smiling. Unlike some daughters who can't even find a husband. Shing grabbed a handful of chicken bones, launched herself over the wall, and went to feed her cat. Exit stage up. After dinner, Mom got serious. Son, bounty hunting won't last forever. The bandits run out. You need a real business. I know, Mom. Rice trading. She also confirmed his fear. Lao Wu's wife had told her the whole village heard about the bounty hunting success and organized a group of their own. Lao Wu couldn't refuse the social pressure. His blood went cold, but he already knew. He'd already been in those mountains. He'd already brought Lao Wu home, and now he sat with his mother in the quiet after dinner, both of them thinking the same thing without saying it. The easy days were ending, the choices he had made, the market fight, the military alliance, the bounty hunting, each one had moved him further from the invisible village chief nobody noticed. He was visible now. Visible meant valuable. Valuable meant threatened. And somewhere in the mountains, a disguised man with arms too thick and footsteps too careful had been watching him. Hadn't come after him yet, which meant he was either smart, patient, or waiting for better odds. None of those options were good, but you had made his choices, and on the other side of the ledger was real. 2 carts of rice in his yard. A family that had eaten a second meal today for the first time in living memory. Little sisters asleep in new clothes, full bellies, feet washed, smiling even in their dreams. A girl named Jia who had followed him into danger before she knew him. Who brought him an army when he needed one. who had chosen him over every other option available to her, a military commander who owed him a favor, an army buddy who would blow a whistle and summon cavalry over a crab dispute, a network of loyal beggars who knew every secret in 3 counties, and a system in his eyeballs that could turn roots into coins and crabs into empires. The original you had all of this, every single piece, and he had spent his retirement sitting in a mud hut, too proud to ask, too broken to move, letting despair eat him alive from the inside. That man was dead, and the man who woke up in his place had spent exactly 3 days doing what the original could not. He fed his family, he made enemies kneel, he built alliances, he created something where there had been nothing, not because he was smarter or stronger, though the original's body helped with the second part, but because he had started from scratch before, because in his old life, being broke was just Tuesday, because he knew that resources without action are just potential, and potential without purpose is just a very detailed fantasy. He stood up from the dinner table, walked to the door of his mud hut in his mud village full of widows and weeds and cracked earth, and looked out at the stars over ancient China. 3 days ago, he had a white cloth over his face. Tonight his family had meat porridge and new clothes and a horse tied to the fence. Tomorrow there would be more problems. There always were. The disguised man in the mountains, the marriage bureau coming for Shioi, Sukin's beggar network needing a pivot, 1,000 women in one village looking at him with eyes that had never had reason to look at anything with hope before, the emperor's war on the horizon, grinding toward them across the steppe like a season nobody could stop. And somewhere behind all of it, the Prince of Yan, his sworn brother, the man who had saved his life and hidden him here in this village of women, as a gift wrapped in inconvenience, a gift you had only just started unwrapping. He lit a cigarette from his system, the last one, and stood there in the dark, watching the smoke curl up into the ancient sky. In his old life, he had been a security guard mooching off his girlfriend, perfectly happy, going nowhere in particular. In this life, he was a village chief, a merchant, a bounty hunter, a weapons manufacturer, a military consultant, and a man with a woman who would walk into a battlefield for him without being asked. The mud hut was still a mud hut. The sisters were still too thin. The farmland was still cracked and dry. But the bucket of coins on the table was real. The rice in the storeroom was real. The horse at the fence was real. And the warmth humming in his chest, the internal energy that had been building since that first moment weeding in the field, that was real too, getting stronger every day, every fight, every choice, every impossible situation navigated by instinct and stubbornness and the lifetimes of learning how people work. He had come back from the dead with nothing but funeral coins and a body full of someone else's memories. He had turned those memories into leverage, that leverage into allies, those allies into protection, and that protection into the first real foundation this village had ever had. He wasn't done, not even close. But for tonight, with his sisters asleep and his mother finally at rest in Gia somewhere across the village, probably smiling at the ceiling, tonight was enough. The tiger had his teeth back, and ancient China had no idea what was coming.